What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I got a couple things to talk about on the old agenda here. Hopefully it adds something positive to your mental diet for today. I find your mental diet to be probably more important than your physical diet, just for your overall well-being. And so it's important if you're spending a majority of your time on the internet, just filling your attention with just crazy rabbit holes after crazy rabbit holes, that's just kind of just leaving you feeling hopeless and shit like that. It's time to kind of make it shift, and that's what I wanted to talk about is these shifts, just instantly shifting your state of your mind, your state of being to align with what you're actually desiring, which is to feel good, more likely to be at peace, and not to be sitting here, freaking out in your mind about whatever, problem and difficulty and, whatever kind of life situation might be manifesting. To look at things through kind of a lens of acceptance, which doesn't mean, giving up. That feels like, the old mind likes to think of acceptance as just like, well, just accept it, you're a failure. Accept it, it's just never going to happen. That's not reality. But like how I'm kind of talking about acceptance is looking at the situation, honestly, looking at it, it's like if you had a garden that's just like grown to shit with weeds and everything else, you can sit there and you can blame Mother Nature and everything, but till you look at it and go, what kind of role did I play in this? That's the kind of acceptance I'm talking about. Look at your life, look at every situation in your job, your family, your career, whatever, your health, your well-being. All of these like markers are reflecting your inner conversations, your inner beliefs, your inner assumptions, and ultimately your inner identity, what you believe your identity to be, at least, which you can believe your identity based on separation, separateness from God and separateness from others and everything else, and start to see that pattern unfolding in your life. Or you could look at it through ultimately I feel like is truth, which is through connectedness with God, and connectedness with people, and looking at everything as being part of a bigger master plan. And with that, everything is possible to you because taking on a lot of like the law of assumption, the law of attraction, and just like the biblical examples of the laws of consciousness that Jesus shared with us, and putting that into practice more and more so into your like daily life makes it easier when you're confronted with like kind of like the worst case scenario. Say you're going through some shit where it's like obviously is contrary, your 3D life, your situations and everything are going like a shit show, basically. It's the opposite of what you're actually desiring. That's like an important time to put into practice non-resistance and allowing, because what the old mind wants to do is just recreate and force things and start to struggle and strive and ultimately do it on your own, where the new mind trusts that God's going to bring you the desired result and already has. It's like the problem is you're just not embodying that state. You can move through many different states of consciousness throughout the day. Some people unconsciously choose, to spend those states experiencing suffering in its many flavors and forms, ultimately because of the identity, that they're embodying, which that identity is an identity based in separation, where you can choose to put on your new identity in Christ, and see these different whatever obstacles, challenges, whatever God's bringing to you as an opportunity to demonstrate your new identity. And as you do that, through not freaking out, by being still and trusting that, so maybe you're experiencing like some scarcity issues, when it comes to like money. You're sitting there having like double-mindedness about it, where it's like you want it, but at the same time you feel guilty and like not worthy of having it. And so there's like this double-minded conflict going on. And then, when things are going good, it's not really that obvious that that's going on, because it's not being brought to your attention. But like, say, that kind of scarcity is starting to manifest in your life. Maybe your job cut their hours, or you're maybe unemployed because you didn't want to capitulate to insane experimental medical procedures to keep your job. And so it's like a lot of scarcity concerns and everything else, where the old mind would think it solves that problem by sitting in constant worry. The new mind is able to realize that that's not even a problem. The problem is the thought of scarcity that's not real, and judging the situation through this narrow understanding. Most of the time, that understanding comes from past beliefs and assumptions, and it's very probably common that this old mind that wants to sit there and then, well, I'll fix the problem the way I've done it in the past, instead of embracing a new way of doing it, a new way of like just trusting that God's bringing the whatever scarcity, God's bringing the abundance. It's like, as you sit there in the the already manifested, and start to battle and resist it, you're actually prolonging this state. You're breathing life into it, instead of just accepting like, oh, here's some, here's the situation. I in the past, would freak out, thinking, oh, there's some scarcity, oh, there's not enough, I'm in trouble now, what do I need to do to get out of this? I'm not saying don't take inspired action. It all kind of depends on where your mindset is anyway. Where it's just like, okay, well, if you're from the day you're 3 years old and your parents were putting it on you that you got to work to make this, happen, your logical part of your mind, and it goes, well, if A, plus B equals C, then I need to do A. It's like, what do I need to do? And so, not to sit there and like totally just fucking just go, balls deep and testing your faith. Not to say you can't do that, but like, take where you're at, whatever limiting belief or assumption, or, well, maybe you're got a story that you want to tell yourself of how God's going to make you struggle and strive to, because that's pleasing for some reason. Look at what's going on within you. Don't sit there and like try to just quash it and resist it. But it's like, okay, well, I got a fear. It's like, well, things were going great, and then all of a sudden there was some sort of doubt that crept in. Now all of a sudden I'm in a different state, and now that's manifesting. And it's like, oh no, what's going on? And where, like, me personally, I've in the past getting these states of like, okay, well, in the future, this will shake loose. It's just like, I just got to spend the present moment struggling and striving until that happens. Looking at that as an opportunity to now retroactively, realize that God can change the past circumstances, the present, and the future. It's all one thing. So, am I going to spend this time where all things are possible, believing that they're not possible, freaking out and believing in limitations and believing in scarcity and believing in illusions? Or will I take this time to rest and be still and trust that God's bringing the resource? God will do that, because God loves me. That's and God loves you. I mean, it's like it's the same type of like mentality, where you're, instead of like telling yourself these old stories that were created by your own ego, looking towards like the Bible and looking towards Jesus. What does that say, to think in these circumstances? Do you sit there and freak out about it, or do you sit there and trust the promises of God to be true? And the more that you trust the promises of God are true, the more you start to actually see that reflecting out, and the less, whenever you face these little obstacles and whatever, check your mind, because you are creating the fear. You are creating these narratives of, worst case scenarios, and I gotta, I gotta do this and do that, and once you've really come to grips with the fact that you're the one creating these stories in your mind, and you are the one creating the fear, just as easily you can create the love. It's just a matter of choosing to create versus just reacting. That's the main problem when it comes to facing different things that come up, facing your shadow, basically facing your past creation. If you're not sitting there accepting it, that you had a big role to play in what's going on, it's you're going to just play out that same pattern over and over and over again. It's like radically start to accept the present moment. Not to say that it can't be different, but like if your garden is overrun with weeds because you haven't taken care of it, or you've just neglected it, or whatever you've got going on. Meanwhile, your neighbor's got a fucking immaculate garden. You're sitting on the same dirt. Instead of making up stories of why they cheated, of why they can do it and you can't, and then creating a limiting belief that justifies it and everything else, objectively, or just neutrally, get in that observer position, the same kind of mental space you can get into where you're observing the thoughts, observe your life situations, and assess the situation, assess how you're thinking about it. It's like, do you feel like you deserve to be punished? Do you think you deserve to be, in the undesirable? Do you think, God wants to give you these dreams and aspirations and then take some sort of sick pleasure and never allowing you to even taste it? It's like, all of those are kind of limiting beliefs, but you can start to shift that the more you practice this, more and more instantly, and start to see the reflection. The signs follow. So it's like you got to make that inner decision first, that inner state. You got to decide who you want to be in the face of this. Are you going to be the old victim that's just experiencing states of suffering and aloneness and just separateness, or are you going to face this as a child of God, where all things are possible to you? Choice is yours. I mean, you can have the same experience of like the 3D, only one person is telling themselves what a victim they are and how it's hopeless and how things are just living in a virtual kind of like prison hell. Or you can start to, instead of listening to that guide, ask God, what do you think about this? What do you think? How should I view this? And then be still. A lot of times, it's like maybe you get like just a feeling start to like emerge from within you, or you could get like a little, little thought package, where it's just like, oh, you just get this revelation of just an idea. A seed gets planted or something, or you're just standing around, and next thing you know, there's a song on the radio, some chance utterance of some stranger near you. It's like all of those, everything in creation can be used to convey a message to you, and the thing of it is like as that comes more and more obvious, more and more part of your existence in life, it's easy then to want to try to control and manipulate. It's like, oh, when you start seeing how you have these inner conversations, oh, A happens, and B, then C happens. It's like starting thinking like that. But it's like the more that you just allow and not try to control and manipulate, and it can be difficult, because it's like, the old mind constantly wants to try to create a scenario to get a feeling. And it doesn't know how to do that. It only uses like, okay, well, this time in the past, this happened, but I felt really good. And so I'm going to try to just recreate that because I know what makes me feel good. Even though in that probably instance, you're probably just in flow and allowing, God to bring things to your life and, go through this bridge of incidents. It's easy to kind of fall back and drift into the old pattern, but the faster you can catch it, you can start to instantly shift your state of being. And depending on where your mind's at, you can shift an entire past. You can shift a different timeline where that's already happened. So it's not, you don't have to spend the present moment in a space of just waiting for God to change something. It's like God's already changed it. Boom, it's already done. Retroactively, it's already happened. You just need to just embody that new identity now moving forward, and it'll start to concrete into a fact the more that you believe that God's already done it, because God promised that God would do that. And it's just believing, and it's like so many times I hear, with like the law of attraction and law of assumption crowd, oh, he signaled, where it's just like, seeking a lot of maybe material things to get a feeling. A lot of times, if you follow the advice of Jesus, to seek the kingdom of God first and His righteousness, then all these things will be added. A lot of times, like, when you do that, you get a lot of like the resistance from the old mind that wants to come in. It's like, well, I don't even know what the kingdom is, but I know what, I don't know, some material, like, I know what money is, and I know I can use that to pay my bills and not freak out, and that brings me peace because I'm not freaking out. But it's like, that security or whatever is all symbolic. It's all a representation, of what your beliefs are. And with that, it's just like, you can start to shift out of that funk, because sometimes we can just get into a funk, maybe get some doubt or just some triggering event happens, and then we kind of drift into a state of maybe scarcity, or that's like, to me, like a really obvious like difference. As somebody who's like self-employed, has a business, has multiple businesses, it's just like you see how things flow. And you're either in that flow, and when you're in that flow, you're like, you're part of it. It's just, you're not even thinking, about things like, scarcity. But then when you almost like, something happens, you get bumped out of the flow. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, what's going on? What's different? And then you start looking like within. It's like, did I, have a mind? What's happening? Did I have a mindset problem? Did I just like? And you have to start self-reflecting on that. And then once you kind of realize the difference, then put on that new state and realize that, boom, just like that, everything is already aligned to it. It's just like a process of now embodying the state, ask, believe, then receive it. So, get into that believing. And then, ultimately, I feel like the biggest kind of activator to that is the gratitude, where it's like you realize that God changed the past circumstances to line up to today, to right now. It's not some future thing. You can start embodying these states of consciousness. Start to be who you choose to be, who God created you to be. Now more and more so each day. And putting that on and putting it to your actual life, because it's easy to kind of, I hear these faith-filled words, and then 10 minutes later, some drama comes up, and it's like, drift back into the old kind of like, I'm just going to react to it. Instead of in the face of it creating instead. It's like, I feel like that's the biggest difference, where it's just like, maybe in the past, you fear, you fear, manifest, and then you just react to it, which then says it's real and it's a threat and it's dangerous, and it strengthens it. Where now you can, have a situation come up, and instead of reacting to it like the world does, there's a new variant, let's react and change up everything, and let's constantly be a slave to this narrative from who knows where it's coming from. It's like, and the thing of it is, it's like, it's easy to drift into the reactivity, just because, but it doesn't mean that that's normal. It's through upbringing, I guess. It's just the way culture, right? Who knows? But like, instead of looking at it like, oh shit, I'm going to react. Instead, just be like, I'm going to create in the face of that. I got some scarcity. I'm going to just trust that God is my abundance, and everything's unfolding perfectly. I don't have to come up with the plan. I don't have to create the plan. The plan's already created. I just need to realize that I don't have to worry about it. In the face of this, I'm going to choose love instead of fear. I'm going to choose this. What does God say about this? And then be still, pray about it, and see if you get, it's all instantaneous. It's all being reflected like a mirror. And so when you see the undesirable, it's like you're also seeing part of yourself. It's just like a distortion. It's an illusion that you created. And then start to react to it. It's easy to like, oh, take responsibility for your life when things are going awesome. It's, I wouldn't say it's more challenging, but it's like it's something to be like made aware of. It's like you stop blaming everything but yourself for your situation, when it's undesirable. It's like look at it as something that you created just as well as something you created great. It's like it's always something that when it comes to you, you're gonna like choose to freak out of your own creation thing. This part of it. But like another part of it is accepting that you had a role to play in that, at least your mindset about it. But instead of just reacting again, I'm going to choose love instead of reacting. I'm going to imagine a scenario how this plays out perfectly, or more so focus on the feeling. It's like I don't really care how it plays out. I just want to feel, if I can put myself in this state of being. It's like, I don't know, you got $5,000 in the bank and your bills are paid. How does that make you feel? You're able to provide gifts for Christmas to your family, or you're able to do that kind of stuff. You're able to provide for others. Put yourself in that identity of like, oh, you just have that, and if that's chump change to you, then 10,000. That's chump change. 25,000. Whatever your threshold. Everybody's threshold is different. It's like some people feel broke if they get like $100,000. Others is like, man, if I just had $100, I feel so rich. It's just a matter of where you're at on the scarcity and abundance and prosperity, whatever level. We're all on different levels of everything. Not to shame and guilt others. You should actually look at others that are like a higher level and not be envious, but realize that God gave that to them, regardless. If they got it unconsciously or consciously. And that's for you then too. So it's like you can have anything anybody else that has, and there's no limit. Everything is possible. So if you're going to be on the tip of the spear of what's possible, you can at least look at the people that are at your current state. Start to steward where you're at, and it's like, okay, where do I want to be? Man, that's a question between you and God, and it's not between anybody else. That's one of the biggest illusions I feel like is like this idea that of success is something like somebody else gives you. It's like you have to, because it's not real. I mean, it's just like, what does that even mean? That you make, that you don't need you don't need a job that makes you successful, or it's like you need to make six figures and then you're successful. And there's so, but this like, and I was thinking about this the other day with, and it comes like to music and like being like independent, not really being part of like the music industry, like commercial radio is, on some level kind of, with like the publishing. I was like at a customer's house one time, and they just had like, I think it was Fox News on, something like that, and there was a commercial break, and I was just like chilling in their living room, getting ready to get going on this checklist, and like I heard one of my tracks on the just randomly on the TV on the like an advertisement. That's happened numerous times, and like the thing of it, is it's like there's no. It's like, unless you're in like the little Beast System Club, they give themselves awards. That's like, I was like talking to like this like record guy out of Nashville, and he was like just joking around. He's like saying, what do you call them, bowling trophies, like these Grammys and shit. Because they give them to themselves. And there's so many illusions when it comes to music, and entertainment, just like, the whole entertainment business is can be an illusion. It's like there's like many people that are like kind of believe it's real, but it's like the higher up you go, you realize they're just marketing and playing buzz games and just creating scenarios that aren't actually real. It's like, it's like a good example I think of that is like laugh tracks and like comedy like shows, where it's just like it subconsciously tricks people into thinking shit's funny when it's really not that funny if you took out the laugh tracks. But people just like kind of just match frequencies with shit that they hear. It's like the same thing with like a lot of like commercial radio. So you can drive to New York to LA and you hear the same 20 song playlist on all these commercial radios. It's not organic. There's like nothing really organic. I mean, the music business in itself is kind of a fucking weird business, because it's filled with people that are a lot of which don't fit in like these little boxes, and so it's like kind of hard to like, it's just a weird, strange business, compared to like something more like handyman business, where it's just like, oh, you just come do some drywall and everything else. Like the music, it's a weird thing, and it's filled with trickery, and illusions. Buzz is a good example of that. Making buzz, where it's like, oh, you're dropping a new album, and then, people don't realize how easy it is to buy clicks and plays and like buttons, and like a lot of artists would be like, oh, that's cheating, and it's like, well, a lot of these label people don't give a fuck at all. There's like cheating. I'm trying to make money, dude. It's like, what are you talking about? And it's like, well, it didn't happen organically. It's like, none of this shit happens organically. Why do you think it happens organically? Why do you think you just put it out there and it just shit happens? It's like, and that's like part of like the game of it, where it's just like once you realize that's going on, it's like it makes it a lot easier to like not fall for the tricks of it, and like the allure of it, where it's just like, a lot of like music, the higher end stuff is like flipping money, return on investment, where that's why you hear a lot of like the same type of, because it's all wrote by like the same handful of people. It's like they don't want to take the risk, because where there's risk, it's like, I'd rather just have this formula where it's like I make a guaranteed little margin on these things, versus like a big gamble where it's just like I could throw a bunch of shit, money on this, let some artist, just sit in a studio for fucking a year and a half and see what they come up with. It's more like banking and loan. Like a lot of like the major label model is really more like a bank for creative types, I guess. Where this is way to get loans and money, and then it's like, well, I can pay off this advance, with future units sold and stuff like that. And I never even really got too much into like record label, that part of the music business. I was always in the publishing end. I still am in the publishing end of it, where it's just like I do more of like licensing, things with my like music, and even with that, a lot of that is, I think that is almost like more I wouldn't say it's more under, but it's just like not as glitzy and glamorous, but it's just like you get out of that whole box, where and then what do you have left? It's like, oh, okay, what's success then? It's like it's weird, and all of these things are just like self-defined, and success is different for everybody. But the biggest thing is feeling like you already are successful. That's part of like getting out of this mindset. Like the old mind was unsuccessful. The new mind is successful. And so it's like, whenever you're in that identity where you're starting to see a lot of like undesirable reflecting, realize that you're in the old mind. And reality, God's mirroring that back to you to show you kind of what you're being. You're always being shown what you're being. You always get who you are, and so use that to shift more and more so now, so you can start to enjoy the day, start to feel good, feel happy with where you're at in life, not to sit there and just go, oh, well, you're stuck. You just need to allow, or you just need to accept that. It's like, take responsibility for where you're at, and then start to grow it. Start to like, okay, well, this is where I'm at. My limiting beliefs has created this little box. I'm going to let God give me bigger beliefs, and I'm going to watch this garden I'm growing get bigger and bigger. And by the time it gets bigger and bigger, your mental game will match that anyway. It's always being reflected. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. Hopefully that helps. Helps you be able to shift your state of mind and get out of a reactivity mode and more into a creating mode. And I think that's going to be it. So I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, all the social networking things. I also appreciate your spiritual support and your financial support. Thank you for that. And until the next now, God bless.